So this is the Usability Ninja series, and it's the 4th year we've actually done this at Dreamforce. Has anybody seen this content before? One? Back for more punishment? Good. Awesome. So in prior years, we've done this split out where we do one whole session about how to run usability testing, how to talk to your users, how to discover the problems in your org, and we did a whole nother session on tips and tricks and everything like that. This year, we've combined them and focused in a different area, hopefully to give the repeat offenders some new content and some new delivery. But we'll talk and give you reference to all the stuff that we've done in the past, so you have access to all the history stuff. Before we go too much further, if you've never seen this before, neither Scott nor myself work at Salesforce, so don't do anything based on anything we say. Especially don't make any purchasing decisions based on anything we say. All right, my name is Matthew Lamb. I work at Rackspace, where I run our sales systems and tools team, which includes Salesforce.com and a couple of other major tool sets we have internally. I am certifiable in a bunch of areas. They still let me up here, though. So I actually spent, before I got into the Salesforce world, Scott, unbeknownst to him, hired me out of college, and I went and did usability research and user experience consulting for about 7 years. And then as part of that, I flipped into the Salesforce ecosystem and loved that a little more, so got into the Salesforce consulting world, and that took me to where I am today. So why are we here? We're here to talk about compasses and how to use them. Not really. We are here to talk about effectiveness and efficiency. So if you really think about a compass, it's got two parts, right? It's got the thing that tells you where north is, but that doesn't really work all that well if you don't have the context of where the other directions are, right? And the context of directions doesn't work all that well if you don't understand where north is. So we're going to talk about those two things as they relate to Salesforce, effective and efficiency. So effectiveness, right, is really doing the right thing. So for your customers, helping your customers solve their problems. For your management, make sure they make the right decisions, right, helping them make those decisions. And for your end users, really. We sometimes lose focus on them, making them smarter, right, making it a tool that helps them do their job and gets value from, not just something they have to slam data into to drive management reports. And then efficiency, doing the right thing, right? Once we have the effectiveness set up, once we know sort of where we're going as a company and what our processes are, making sure that we've got validation rules in place and formulas that actually make the system work in order to guide that process. So how are we going to do all that in 35 minutes? Scott talks a lot faster than I do, so I'm going to turn it over to Scott, and he's going to do this all in 35 minutes.
With shadow puppets, that's the best part. So thank you, Matt. So, clicker. Hello, clicker. All right, so hi, my name's Scott. Actually, I'm going to say howdy because both Matt and I went to Texas A&M, where you're supposed to start every conference with howdy. So, howdy. Howdy. Thank you very much. All right, so a little bit about me. So, hi, my name's Scott. I've been doing this shindig for about 20 years, give or take, and my whole career is figuring out what do customers like and figuring out how to make it better. So, I'm also a co-leader of the user group in Dallas, so if you're in Dallas, please find me. I'm also a former Salesforce employee, so for 4 years I worked within the user experience team, specifically on the user research team. So if any of you have done usability testing for Salesforce, it's great. Hopefully you did. Hopefully it was a fun process. We'll talk to you more about it because it's a cool process. So now I went back to Texas, and so I work at a company called Usability Sciences. We do usability consulting, user research for Fortune 1000. That said, we're really trying to crack the code into doing research practices specific to Salesforce implementation. So that's really what I wanted you to think about today, is arming you to figure out how to do it yourself. But if you say, well, our issues are a little bit bigger, then I know somebody I would recommend to you. Okay, so that said, let's keep going. So Matt's question, how are you possibly going to tell me all of this within 35 minutes? I don't think you can do it, nor do I. So we're going to do, as all good people do, we're going to cheat. We're going to give you some homework after this process. And now the process is, think of today as the Cliff Notes. We're going to increase your mind. We're going to give you the ideas of what's possible and then tell you later on how to do them. Because as Matt said, this is our 4th year, so we're going to take advantage. We're going to leverage the content that we have out there on YouTube. So hopefully you're okay with my voice because I got 60 minutes of my voice. Hopefully you're all right with Matt's voice because I got 60 minutes of his voice. And I'll tell you a little bit more about what you'll hear in those sessions. But for today, what are we going to focus on? Today's focus is the playbook. In the playbook, chapter 1 is the foundation. What are you talking about? Let's all level set and let's make sure we're coming from the real world, from the right place. And then I want to give you a real world example. Sometimes it's the best way to really get a frame of reference about what we're talking about. So that's chapter 1. Chapter 2 and 3 are bookends. They go together. The effectiveness and the efficiency. As Matt said, do the right thing, do the thing right. We're going to focus, I'll tell you now, I don't want to spoil the end of this book, but we're going to spend a lot of time on chapter 2 because that's the effectiveness. In my opinion, I've talked to more than a couple Salesforce admins. Because I am a Salesforce admin, by the way, that is a part of my job. It's very easy to get too focused on the efficiency and making a formula field and making sure the workflow and all these things are doing the thing right, but we lose focus of the larger picture. And that's why I want to spend more time in today's session around the effectiveness. Again, going back to our compass situation, it's making sure we all agree which direction is north. All right? So again, you're going to see these links a couple times, so if you want to write them down now or you want to write them down later, we're going to show these. But it's the chapter 4 is, okay, now what? You've convinced me I need to do it. So the homework, again, is the effectiveness. Let me tell you, what we're doing today is sort of the why of being effective. That 60-minute session, the first one, is how to listen. And it's the tactical pieces of how you as an admin, hey, I'm biased. How can I be Switzerland? How can I be neutral? That's what that session is about. So you're going to see some video clips later on in this session, and those are the video clips that we're going to teach you how to do in your organization. All right? Everybody buy that? And then the efficiency piece, let me highlight again. Matt's an MVP. In the success community, he's answered 5,000 plus answers. He likes to answer things, and he's been doing implementation, and he's like a triple threat because he's been doing usability. So that 60 minutes is jammed in with everything that you could possibly do to improve your usability. And we're going to talk about that towards the end of the session. All right? Everybody buy this? All right. I saw heads nod. That's a good sign. So let's talk about the foundation. I'm going to talk about usability, and usability involves 4 different ingredients. It's effective and satisfying. We're going to agree those are universal. It always needs to be those 2 things. But when it gets to learnable and efficient, that's where most would say there's a scale here. Where is success? Now success, don't take a picture yet until, give me a second. So where is success? Success is typically in the middle, maybe. Now it depends on who is your end user. Because if your end user is the infrequent, apologies. Yeah, okay, anyway, sorry, I can only see infrequent, not the I. So the infrequent user, well, we have high turnover, or they do infrequent tasks, so we're going to optimize for learnability in that situation. My example for you is PowerPoint. PowerPoint is meant to be, you open a PowerPoint and it says, click here to type a title. That's training wheels. But because it's very learnable, it's a good idea. Versus the other end of the spectrum is about efficiency. And that one, think about Excel. Or in Salesforce world, think about the call center. We have a long sales cycle. We have people that have been here for 5 years. We don't care about learnable. We want them to be as efficient as possible. And there's that balance. And you just have to be aware of it and monitor it. The hardest one is probably learnable because, again, as admins, I think we focus on efficiency. And it's that learnable side. Talk to your trainers. What issues are they always running into? Use custom help. We'll get into those details. But does that make sense? Success can move a little bit around different places. Okay. So now that we understand what usability is, I'm going to give you a couple mental images today. One of them is the compass. This is the other one that I'm going to show you. I want you to think about, to improve usability as admins, you're sitting in your desk trying to predict how does that person over there work and think. This is what you need to do. You need to look at it through their lens. You have to look at it through their eyes. You need to try on their shoes. You need to walk in their shoes. You can't just say, man, I can't imagine walking in those. That looks hard. You have to try them on. You have to do it. And that involves looking at it through their lens. It's not easy. And it's not a sales pitch. It's not the demo. It's not training. It's a different world where your job is to shut up and ask questions. What are you doing? How would you like this to work? And you have to look at it through their lens. All right. So in case that doesn't make sense, I'm going to give you a real-world example. I was pretty proud of this real-world example that I found. All right. Fortunately, unfortunately, you are all now stranded on a beautiful deserted island. Good news, there's a map. Good news, there's an X. And they've also given you a compass. Now, some of you may have seen this setup before because this is something that they did for CBS. But anyway, you're on a stranded island. You've got these ingredients. Step 1, starting from the barrels, go north 13 yards. Everybody understand your instructions so far? So here's my quiz. Imagine, if you will, north, south, east, west is really in our world up, down, left, right. In which direction? You're at the barrels. Which direction do you start walking? Anybody think you go left? Anybody think you go right? How about up? How many would say north is up? And if you smell a trick question, fine. But how many, if I didn't say trick question, let's agree it's going to be a very high percentage. You're going to say north is up. All right, spoiler alert. All right. So this is amazing TV show called The Amazing Race. The producers are brilliant because they smell the drama that's going to happen with this is a usability issue waiting to happen. So they gave 11 teams the same tools, same map, same compass, same island in the St. Thomas in the Caribbean. Of course, as all good reality series, there's different outcomes. So let's talk about this. So here's a video clip.
Okay, so I do have to go through coordinates because I'm being stupid right now. 21 yards southwest. Maybe I should have took compass reading classes. So that's 1.
I've used a compass before, but I've had the kind where you face down, arrow pointing right in the direction of north. So this is a completely different kind of compass.
I'm doing it. I'm digging. All right, come on, compass. I'm trying to find my designated landmark, which is an anchor.
Hey, girlie, did you choose a bell too?
Yes, this looks like a bell, but it's also an anchor. There's no anchor on the beach.
Barrels, north 13, northeast 21. All right, so just lining up my northeast coordinate, picking a point that I'm gonna measure to.
Can you read this compass?
Yeah, that's east. I got a compass in my watch. Let's see if I'm right. It's saying that's north. Yeah, we did it wrong. Think about it. Sun sets in the west.
Oh my gosh, it's been off the whole time.
North 13. The direction that's pointing towards me is the direction that I'm heading. It's actually a little backwards.
Tune in. Highly recommend The Amazing Race. So let's talk a little bit about that, because I admit when I was first watched that video clip, I was confused. But these 11 teams are competing for $1 million. Say that again, $1 million. 4 hours later, they started sometime during the bright daylight, and you can see it's dark. 4 hours later, all 3 of these teams universally quit because they could not figure out how to go north 13 paces and then northeast 21 yards. It was a real compass. I watched that video clip several times, like, what's going on? They had a funky compass. It's a real compass. It's all working as expected. A little bit more. So the reason for the failure. Here's what they're seeing. They're looking at this compass from the top down. And when you look at it like this, a couple things. They followed the north arrow, but they ignored the signs. Some of those signs that we talked about, the sun was setting in the east as they're working through this process. They've been there for 4 hours. The sun's going down the whole time. They're ignoring the signs because they're assuming north is here. North is in this direction because they're reading it like that. Other thing, they're looking at it from top down. MN. I'm unfamiliar with this MN quadrant. What does that mean? And you heard this guy say, well, northeast. He was saying, well, I'm guessing the engineer of this is stupid because they put their labels upside down.
It's mostly north, right?
Yeah, it's close enough. Now, here's the other one. By the way, there is no arrow in this compass. That's what they're seeing. So let me fast forward for you. Will the real north stand up? As you look at it like this, how many of you still don't see it? How many of you still think north is what they're seeing? Anybody still a little confused? All right. This is north. Because you're meant to look at it sort of like down the gun barrel of the sights. You're meant to look at it when you're sitting on a boat. It's in front of the steering wheel. So the compass isn't moving around. You're looking at it from the front on. You're not looking at it from the over the head. That's why there's no arrow. The dial is moving as the ship is turning. It's brilliant. It's highly, highly, highly efficient. Now, can you imagine the engineer that built this compass watching this TV show with people that can't go north 13 yards? They're idiots. These people have $1 million at stake, and they couldn't figure this out. He had to use his watch to tell him which way is north, to tell him that what he thought was south was north. Pretty smart people. The guy that figured it out was a dentist. Like, clearly he's got some smarts. Anyway, so let's talk about this a little bit more. So what could we do? And again, part of the efficiency, it's highly efficient because when you say, if I said go 330 degrees, the engineer said, I'm going to give you this plastic lineup. I've given you this arrow at the top of this dial, so when you're staring down at it, you're going to know without a doubt 330 degrees. You can't screw this up. Well, that person was proven wrong. So again, I want to reiterate the point about seeing this through the eyes of your customer. You built north thinking it's this. They've been using it all along, going the exact way, opposite way. You need to look at it through their lens. And it's only by watching either CBS Amazing Race or talking to your users that you're going to notice there's a difference. All right, so here's the good news. How do we improve this process? Well, we can make a new digital compass. Let's start all over. Let's scrap it. Let's just buy an iPhone. We're fine. Well, or what if I told you for 25 cents we could fix this problem? 25 cents. All you have to do is put a plastic cover over the top so that you prevent people from even seeing the compass in the wrong paradigm. As admins, we love to use our toolbox of Create a Formula Field, which is our efficiencies. This is how to make it just a little bit more efficient. 25 cents. But if you don't know what you don't know, you can't fix it unless you know the problem exists. All right? Everybody buy me? All right. So let's talk about your world. Again, hi, my name's Scott. I'm an admin. This is a support group. So what's fascinating to me about being an admin, and I'm going to use a disclaimer, this is the typical world of a clicks, not code admin. So, well, I could use Apex. Let's keep that out of this equation for right now. What's fascinating about when we think about our box of efficiencies is everybody is given the exact same box of Tinker Toys and Legos to play with. All right, professional enterprise, let's keep that one out of the equation. But everybody has the same box. But what's different about it in each company is you have different admins. And within those different admins, they have different boundaries about what they know is possible. Now, I don't use campaigns a lot. I know what campaigns can do, so I know what's possible with campaigns. But if you ask me about lead conversion, I'm strong at that. So what I know how to do is this subset. So when you think about this session, I want you to think of it as raising your awareness of what's possible, and your homework is going to be how to increase the box of how to do it. All right? So now, flip side, effectiveness. When you think about the box of possibilities for effectiveness, it's a little bit different. Actually, it's vastly different because there is no box of possibilities. There is a universe of possibilities. Every company is doing things in a different way. Of course, you better be. But within that box of in the universe of possibilities, here's where you might be at. We have a good process. It's a galaxy. We have some planets over there. We have some planets over there. Europe doesn't really talk to South Asia, but at least we're in the same galaxy. Well, we may not have a good process. In fact, we may just have a process. But here's what we would really like to have. We would like to have a great process. And I picked the image of the world because think about the world. What's good about the world is our compass will still point north no matter where you are. Even though you have a global implementation, you have to be aware of different things, but still you want everybody pointed in the same direction, just doing slightly different things. All right, so again, our compass is in there. Because if you try to use the compass to navigate the universe, I'll spoil it for you, it's not going to work very well. All right? So here's my question to you. What quadrant would you say is your Salesforce implementation? There's 4 quadrants, of course. Let me highlight these. And so efficiency is on one axis, effectiveness on the other. Everybody wants to be in the top right quadrant, as always. We're highly efficient. We're highly effective. If you gave me a compass and a sailboat, and he said, from San Francisco, go to Hawaii, and then go to a Fiji, and here's a map. If you're in quadrant 4, I'm not going to poll yet, but think about which of these are you. If you could do that, fantastic. Or are you in the third quadrant, which is you're very effective. Everybody knows which way is north. But if I say go 330 degrees or go northeast, it's a little bit fuzzier. You're not as efficient. Highly effective, just not efficient. Versus the second quadrant is awesome. We are so effective. It's phenomenal. But our compass is missing that one little element about which way is north. That's a bit of a bummer. Versus the first quadrant is just wrong. It's just wrong. The dial doesn't make sense. There's no arrow, all these obvious pieces. So here's my question to you. Please raise your hand. If you're in first quadrant, we won't tell anybody later on. Does anybody feel like your implementation is in the first quadrant?
I'm actually raising my hand.
All right, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Don't be shy.
All right, I'm going to say about 5%, not a lot. How about second quadrant? Highly efficient, just don't know which way is north. All right, I'm going to guess 30, 40% maybe. Okay. How about third quadrant? Highly effective at pointing north. All right, no, the 20%. I'm not adding up math yet. But how about fourth quadrant? Anybody feel like you're in fourth quadrant? Now, you have both hands up. I think that's cheating because you're taking a picture, but just kidding. Am I right in thinking, does anybody think you're in the fourth quadrant? All right, let the record show, I see 0 hands up. Now, what's interesting about this question, when I've asked end users, I'm not asking a room of admins, I'm asking a room full of end users when I've done this. Fourth quadrant, heck yeah, because they're so complacent and they've seen it all and they're just used to it. They're used to not knowing which way is north. They just do it. Yeah, sure, it's effective. It's a fascinating question. When you ask the business owners and the admins, no way. End users, we're great. Which goes back to when you ask admins, how is your implementation? They're fine because sometimes they're in the efficiency. They're not thinking about the effectiveness. All right, so the obvious piece, the obvious question, what's the cost to get into the fourth quadrant? As I'm looking at this room of folks, apparently none of you are there. How much is it going to be to get into that quadrant? I don't know. But the flip side is, what's the cost of not transitioning? What's the cost of not having everybody pointing north? What's the cost of not being able to know which is 330 degrees? That's where you need to be prioritizing. And so when people come to Salesforce and say, what should I do with all this data? What I want you to walk away with is focusing on effectiveness and talking to your end users to prioritize what you should be working on. Okay? Okay, so a little bit more about the effectiveness to do the right thing. Doing the right thing can seem like a big, enormous challenge, because it is. I think it's easier to think of this as stop doing the wrong things, because odds are there's 983 wrong things, and you just start whittling it down. It's easier in my head to focus on that. But I want to walk you through the obvious piece here. You need to start asking questions. You need to be listening and watching for their answers. Don't just make assumptions. Don't look at login rates and say, high five, we're effective. That doesn't count. So Matt Lamb over here works at Rackspace. So we did this process where we went and we talked to the end users. So I'm a third-party researcher. I came in, I know nothing about Rackspace, so you could say I'm neutral Switzerland in this process. So I want to walk you through some video clips so it will cement it. But before I do, I need you to understand the logistics of what we did for what you're about to see. So when you look at the image on the right, sales racker. If you work at Rackspace, you are a racker. And so we brought them in one at a time. They're sitting in the room, air quotes, by themselves, because I want the admin team and the stakeholders to be watching, but I don't want them to be in the same room because of all the body language, and you can imagine it can be a train wreck, and it needs to be a good soundproofed wall in between. So we brought them in one at a time for 60 minutes each, give or take. And so, by the way, so my 60 minutes YouTube video, this session, this piece, is 60 minutes. It is exactly how you can do this yourself. All right. Or again, call it professional. So we use GoToMeeting so that we could see their desktop, and we could use GoToMeeting so that we're seeing the webcam. So we're seeing the furrowed eyebrows. And again, you'll see this. Note to self, we tested in production. Don't do that. But we had an admin that could delete anything if we messed up. But it was a simple process of walking you through how you create an opportunity. And that process is an hour, just talking about how you create an opportunity. We're not talking about search results. We're not talking about all these other pieces. It's just that core part of your job. Let's focus on it. Of course, deliverables, great. All right, we good? All right. So let me tell you what you are about to see in this video. Because you're not Rackers and you're not familiar with this world, congratulations. I'll tell you that Rackspace launched a new product called Cloud Sites. As an admin, a couple months ago, you created a new pick list option called Cloud Sites so that you could start tracking how many people are buying Cloud Sites. Everybody buy that? All right, pick list. The participant, experienced Racker, his territory, 100% focused in the southwest United States. We'll explain to you why that's relevant later on. The situation, good news, he's got a customer. The customer is buying one of these Cloud Sites. Everybody understand so far? All right, so I'm going to show you a video. I will tell you now it is fuzzy because it's real data. So we're trying to protect the innocent or guilty. So here we go.
Oh, well, let me just pick one. So if I go to close an opportunity, you'll see the record type is Rackspace Cloud, but the final opportunity type, I have the option to choose Cloud, Manage Cloud, or Cloud Sites. But whenever I choose Cloud Sites, which is a lot of what we're closing down, it won't let me actually go in and close the deal out. So there's something in there that prevents you from actually finalizing the close whenever you have this option selected. So we've just been defaulting back to Cloud.
So we have a little bit more video, but I wanted to pause just so we're clear about this. One of the efficiencies is using data validation where only certain things can happen, which is great. I recommend QAing it to make sure it works. All right, so that's, we got messed up by we're too efficient. Sorry, hold on.
How long would you say that bug has been around? So they added the option of, it used to just be Cloud and Manage Cloud. They added this option, if I'm not mistaken, probably back in April. And it's still kind of it's been like that ever since. Like whenever they added it in, we weren't able to close it out. So it's been around for a little bit.
So pure question on process. So obviously it's not working. Is there a way for you to flag this to tell other people that it's not working?
I know in Proposal Manager how to flag it, but I'm not familiar with the process within Salesforce specifically. Generally for stuff like this, we would just bubble it up to our manager, and they have the contacts to loop in the Salesforce guys.
Anybody want to guess? Anybody smell a problem on our effectiveness? So later on, as I was talking to this guy, I was like, well, did you talk to your manager? Yeah, I've bothered him a couple times. Other people have asked him a couple times for 4 months. He said it very nicely, and it's technically it's really not the manager's fault. I think it's the problem of not having very clear, if you have a problem, click here and create a case for this. The best practice is you should have a submission process so people can raise it. But that's 4 months of not doing great. Right? Any color commentary?
No.
Yeah, all right.
Just shame.
All right.
No color.
To be fair, he's a new, no
I only got
disclaimers.
this 3 months ago, so I didn't introduce the problem.
All right, so let's rewind some of the other pieces that you may or may not have seen in this process. Small things add up. You've heard about death by 1,000 cuts. That's really when we talk about efficiencies and effectiveness, how this all plays out. Small things. So when he was going through this opportunity, let's watch this.
Oh, well, let me just pick one.
Page loads.
So if I go to close
Scroll. Let me show you about opportunities. Now, what was he scrolling past? The feed, the chatter feed. Chatter. So if you were able to see what he was seeing, what is he scrolling past? Now, the admin said best practice for chatter is to turn on auto tracking of some certain fields, so that way you have some data. Great best practice. You should do that. However, I suggest not tracking the amount field, because the only things in this record were the amount fields changing. In one day, it spanned seven pieces of it changed. So that was 32 minutes in that time. It had changed a lot. So he was forced to scroll a page and a half every time he wanted to get to an opportunity, because he didn't realize how to collapse the feed. By the way, you can collapse the feed, which many end users don't know. And so if I asked him, he said, we're in fourth quadrant because it's great. He doesn't realize he's scrolling every time a page loads, a page and a half to get to the good stuff. So Chatter's great. Auto tracking is good. Just pick your fields is really the core part. One of the other pieces I want to show you. A little bit further. So I told you he was an admin focused 100% in Southwest US. So what do you don't care about if you're in the Southwest US? I'm going to say you don't really care about global currencies. Now, think about the location. You know, if you ever play Monopoly, Boardwalk, Park Place, those are primary real estate. That left-hand navigation pane is primo. Now, the reason it's the multi-currency is because the admins got a request from the UK to say, hey, can you help us out? We need to be more efficient. We need to know what the exchange rate is. Solved. Done it, which is great. Let's be clear. They solved the problem. However, the other part that I'm going to say is more effective in your job is the most recent items, the items down below with here's the things that you realized recently. Now that's below the fold, so that's requiring them to scroll to get to the most effective piece. All right? The only way you find this out is by looking at it through their lens, through your customers. All right? We good? All right. Heads nodding. I'm going to hand this over to Matt. Every admin has the best intentions possible. There is no malice involved in these pieces. But the only way to solve it is to know that the problem exists. And that starts with listening. All right. So, real quick summary. So in a span of 1 minute, 42 minutes, 1 minute, 42 seconds, this is what we learned. Business decisions are being based on months of bad data. The executives are saying, why aren't people buying this new version called Cloud Sites? We have 0 sales for Cloud Sites for the past 4 months. Well, let's make a business decision where let's go east instead of west because it turns out people are buying it, but they just can't save it. That's a bummer. Excessive scrolling, we talked about. Efficiency, chatter best practice. You know, following best practices are good, just be aware. The biggest piece is, again, you can't rely on management. The admin teams, the quote from them, we can't fix what we don't know is broken. So one of the easiest things for you to do is make sure that there is a funnel for people to be able to log, I have a problem. That way, there's a chain of command. It doesn't have to go through the chain of command. All right. So, where are we at? Here we go. Playbook. Matt Lamb.
All right. So my timer says we have 7 minutes. I think we're getting really close to time. So we're going to keep this intentionally short, and we may actually skip over a little bit and come back if you want to hang out. I think we don't have anything, like you said, coming up right after this. But this is more focused on sort of how do we optimize, like Scott was saying, right? How do you optimize Salesforce to be easier to use? How do you actually go in and solve some of those problems? So there is no silver bullet to this. There's not a one-size-fits-all. That dog needs a bigger dog door, obviously. But it's good that we all use, right? Salesforce gives everybody in this room a common sort of UI and platform to work from. So we share that same common interface, and that means we have common problems which usually have common solutions. So even though it's not a one-size-fits-all process, just like Scott said, you have to be in this iterative process of talking to your users, understanding their pain before you can go and fix things the right way. There are things that everybody can do pretty much the same to optimize for ease of use. And that homework down there, so Scott mentioned it before, but I do have a 60-minute session from Dreamforce 12 and another one from Dreamforce 13, if you look on YouTube, that go through all these different kinds of stuff. So we're going to hit a couple of them just as a teaser sample, but please look up there on YouTube. So big things to optimize for usability, page layouts. That's the single biggest thing you should spend the most time on. In fact, both of those YouTube sessions, we spend probably 20 to 30 minutes talking about page layouts because it's where your users live constantly, right? That's how they manage their data. That's how they put the data in. That's where if you're gonna have a problem like this, I don't know what the right option is, or the right option won't let me save, so I just pick whatever. That kind of thing is what you want to tease out first. And even beyond that, so there's different flavors of page layouts. Are you everybody familiar with all those, what each of those does? The search layouts, and the mini layouts, and even the compact layouts? So the The YouTube session goes into each of those, tells you where each of those are, but it's important to optimize all the different ways in which you can lay out pages and where those fit in the UI. Search layouts is probably the thing that I see people in orgs forget the most. So that ends up when you go and search something in global search, you get a big list of auto numbers, which is totally meaningless. Nobody has any idea how to pick from those.
Especially for custom objects. That is the number
Yeah,
one.
so custom objects is the one. So you create a custom object, and out of the box, it contains only the record ID there, or the auto number field, right? And that's it. It doesn't give you anything else. So if you have any custom objects and you haven't gone and done the search layouts, please do. Sidebar components, Scott mentioned that. Validation rules is another big piece. They're good, but from a usability standpoint, they're terrible because they only kick in when you hit the save button, right? So you really want to have things that tell your users what to do, problem avoidance, right? You want to have required fields if it's actually required. You want to make it page layout required so it shows a little red bar where they know that's a required field. Not validation rule required where it kicks in after they hit save and says, oh, by the way, forgot to tell you, but you actually should have filled in this field. Workflows, chatter, there's all kinds of different areas and things that we can get into, and even specific features and functions like I would argue that the new report folder sharing is a usability feature. It used to be not granular enough. It used to be where you could either read and write to every folder that existed or none of them. And now it's much more granular where you can enable your users to save and manage reports in given folders, right? I would argue that that's an ease of use function that you can drive into the tool that will make them more effective in how they can manage their reports. So page layouts, right? So the 7 tips I would call out to get better with your page layouts are removing unnecessary fields and using record types to segment things. Don't go too far overboard on the record types, but using those if you have fundamentally different kinds of layouts that require different kinds of fields to show up on them, record types is really the way to go there so you can control different types and show different things. Required fields are great. Don't go overboard with them. You can't have sales reps sitting, it's always a balance between management saying we need 48 data points to run the business and sales users saying I will give you 3 data points and then I'm just going to throw in junk, right? Because I just want to get past this stupid form and close this deal. So there's always a balancing act there. Automation usually is the key, and just sort of balancing out what, maybe even structures of data, right? Like pick lists are much easier to choose from than actually having people fill out regular text fields. Using sections to group similar fields, updating the properties of each section. I've got some screenshots in just a second for this. Help text is a huge thing, right? And not help text in the sense of if you have a field called the close date, you don't write, this is where you put the close date. Everybody knows that, right? Some meaningful description that users can self-serve when they have questions about where a particular data point should come from, what it should be, those types of things. Reviewing layouts in read and edit modes. I've got a good screenshot of that coming up. And optimizing the related lists in terms of their order and things. Read and edit. So this picture here looks pretty good, and it is 1042. No worries if anybody needs to leave. This is a pretty good page layout in read mode. But the moment you turn that into edit mode, you realize that you dragged a pick list or a checkbox and a rich text field right beside each other. So when you throw that into edit mode, it makes this big goofy gap. And also I'd argue that rich text field, if you're going to have a rich text field, you're probably going to put a lot of writing in there. And that's a really small window for people being able to actually write effectively in that. So we can use hidden sections to optimize that. You can drag a section through the page layout editor, and you can go into the properties of that section. So when you roll your mouse over the section header, it'll say, when do you want this section to show up? Just untick both those boxes, and it won't show up on the read page or the edit page. And the outcome of that is a much more optimized layout, right? Seems like a simple change, but from a use perspective, the page layout's so much shorter. You have so much more room to write in that box, right? It's a simple thing you can do that will actually, your users will feel, and that'll feel like a better experience to them. Using sections to group similar fields. This is one where I've seen a tremendous amount of times where people have a huge collection of fields that just go together for no real logical reason, right? Think really mindfully about what the fields are, how they relate to each other, what the flow of putting that data in is, and managing that with the sections, right? So having the most pertinent information at the top, like if you think about accounts, you probably have address information, and the less meaningful information, the system type of information, flows down toward the bottom of the page layout.
Now, one thing that we did, just this is crazy, but we actually brought in our end users, and we had them in a room, and we turned on Page Layout Editor. We cloned the current layout, and we just, what do you want it to be? And we just let them tell us where to drag the fields around, so it's their sandbox. Not saying we push save and push it immediately, but that way we have a snapshot of what they want, and then you can print these things side by side for which fields are you going to get rid of, and it's just talk to your users. Huh, who thought?
Yes, indeed. Here's the section that I mentioned where you can turn off where that section displays. And there's other properties in there as well, right, that are the out-of-the-box default is a little weird. I think it actually defaults to 2-column and top-down. And sometimes you need different, and if anybody's not familiar with that, that's the tab order. So as you're moving through a page layout, you can actually control in a given section when you hit tab which order it marches through the fields, either top to bottom within that section, and then it'll go through the left column and then the right column, or you can have it go left, right, and then move down a row. So you can control that in each of the section properties. That should be pretty consistent within a given page layout, right? You don't want one section working one way, and then it goes through another way, and then it flips back to the first way.
And what do you recommend, Matt?
Whatever works for your end users.
Perfect.
I think that's the cheat answer. No. And there's the 1-column and 2-column as well. So for long fields, like any text entry fields, rich text fields, definitely keep those in a 1-column section and be consistent with the tab order. Optimizing the related lists, so making sure that not only the overall order of the related list makes sense, so you don't want your opportunities at the very bottom of your accounts page most likely, but you've got relevant columns displayed on each of those. And they're sorted in a logical way. So you can control the sort order of every related list that you have, and you can do that by, it'll default the fields for you there, and you can pick ascending or descending. So with opportunities, for example, I think that one's sorted out of the box by close date descending, but if you have any other similar information, make sure to sort those in a meaningful way so the most pertinent records show up at the top of that list. And then you can control the buttons. So this is one of my long-standing usability gripes with Salesforce. Has anybody never seen that before? I've seen people who've never seen that before. So each time you go in to modify a related list, you can actually control what buttons show up on that related list. And that blue bar, it's not actually, like, I thought it was kind of the top and the bottom, and it's just sort of banded that little area together. You can actually go click that thing, and it'll show you what buttons are available, and you can turn on and off the buttons on a given related list. So this is really useful. This is really useful for if you've got a process that says, hey, we want you to always create opportunities from the given page. You can take all the other related list new buttons away from the pages you don't want people creating opportunities from and drive them toward that. Clicker has gone.
That's a bummer.
All right.
All right. So the now what piece? I know we are in extra innings. So between effectiveness and efficiency, I would prioritize for effectiveness, monitor for efficiency. Priority time. You only have time to do a couple things. Effectiveness, it's hard. I get it. Efficiency, it's easier. Get stakeholder buy-in, what's true north. Where to start? Don't boil the ocean, as they say. Focus on 1 or 2 things. Talk to the CEO. Talk to your head of whoever. What is the most important thing to you? And make that awesome. And then the rest will follow. That's how you will get a bigger team, is by proving that you're very effective in this group, and then you can be effective in the next group, and the next group, and the next group. Again, is North consistent? Do usability tests, build a roadmap. So one of the things that Matt and his team did after this research is start prioritizing. We're not going to fix everything, but let's at least figure out the roadmap to get there. My last piece, not my last piece, before we get to Q&A. So Noelle Kermsey over here, please stand up. So Noelle is with Salesforce. She's an employee. So if you're interested in doing any usability testing for Salesforce, find Noelle afterwards. Highly recommend it. This is, everything we talked about is your implementation. Noelle is your path to figure out how to make the tools that Salesforce is delivering easier. Again, that's my old life. All right. Thank you, Noelle. Okay. Questions, comments, concerns, criticisms? Please fill out your survey. We're looking for